Yes.
Do you feel like you need to say goodbye to the old kettle, feeling sentimental on this Thursday?
No. Testing, testing. Testing, testing.
Hello.
Hey,
Hey, how's it going?
it's going pretty well.
Do you hear white noise on the low end from my side? I've got my heater on.
No, but my tinnitus is ringing like crazy, so I might not be able to hear it anyway.
so maybe it's there and you just don't hear
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Could be better than total deafness, right?
Yes, definitely better than that.
So how's work going lately?
Okay, yeah, I'm not getting anything from you. I was just
Okay, cool.
I was looking for a visual cue. There's no, when you're quiet, nothing's coming through, or at least if it's coming through, it's not making it past the filters.
Excellent, because my feet are cold.
Yeah, work has been going quite well. I'm part of a new team. Well, they've renamed our team. It's now automation and integration.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of
like
stuff with PowerShell and with Scorch and SCCM. Yeah, automating Scorch with automating SCCM with Scorch and PowerShell.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I didn't know of many people really doing much with Scorch, so it's cool to know that it's got some customers. You like working with it?
It took a while to get used to, but I do like it now. It's very powerful, but it's not my favorite thing to work with.
Do y'all have like run books for everything? I mean, is it like widely used?
Widely used. It is by some teams, but no, we don't have run books for everything.
Gotcha.
I'm going to go ahead and call Chrissy. Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Chrissy.
Yay, audio works.
Woo!
And video works.
I don't see you
problem.
guys yet. I have to.
You'll only see us if you go to the live page,
Oh, no kidding.
and there will be a lag. So, or you can go to YouTube.
Actually, you can. Yeah. It
Okay,
was
so I can
interesting.
go to-
I was. Yeah, you either go to YouTube and the PowerScripting channel, or you go to live.powerscripting.net. Same end
Okay.
result.
I can send you a link. Or I'll put it in
Oh,
Slack. It'll be faster.
Oh, there you guys are.
I usually have it up in a window myself because I like to take screenshots of
I make really crazy faces, so I always have to be able to see my own face so that all of my classmates used to tease me. They're like, why do you look like that? The other day, my wife was like, what are you looking at? And I was like, I don't know, I'm programming. Stop looking at my face.
I think you're going to
And
be
so I
the
know
first
that's
Cajun on the show. I'm excited. about it.
Probably. Yeah, there's not a lot of Cajuns doing PowerShell that I'm aware of.
What about the couple, the
Corval.
sequel
Oh.
Midnight DBA?
Yeah, the
Where'd they
Midnight
go?
DBAs.
What's their last names? So I judge. I'm a real snob about Cajuns, and so I got to know their last names.
All right, bear with me.
All right.
Let me see here about us. Okay, there's their Sean. Where's the last name? Sean and Jen. Good Lord, where's their? I'll find it. It's harder to find than I thought it was going to be.
You know who actually I talked to Eric Corville because we say a lot of Corville, and we have a lot of Corvilles where I'm from, and I believe that his dad is from Louisiana or he was born there. So
Okay.
but he's
Yeah,
not
that
really
might make
like,
sense.
culturally Cajun, but by blood he is, and so that makes him a Cajun. So I might be the second Cajun that you have on.
Good enough. But he's definitely not culturally Cajun. We talked to him a few times.
Yeah, I was watching. He was so
Yeah.
chill whenever he was doing his podcast. I was like, all right, you could be chill. You could do it.
I've been
McCohen.
up that way.
Nope. Then no, they don't qualify. You have to have
What?
a L in there, like a LeMaire or a Corbel or a Boudreaux, Thibodeau.
So it's got to be somewhat French.
Yeah. I mean, at least for me, there's a bunch of different ways well, they say there's 3 ways that you can become a Cajun, which is by blood, by marriage, and by the back door. And what they mean by by the back door, I know, it's that you become part of the culture by moving there, eating crawfish, trying to speak the language, and doing the things that we do, like partying, going to Mardi Gras.
Awesome. Okay.
So I have props. Let's see if y'all gonna be
Whoa.
able to see.
You have
All right,
props.
good. Yeah, I do. I have a lot of props. I'm not going to give them away because you guys are recording this and putting it on. Whenever I was watching your podcast, I was doing it from YouTube or whatever, and it went all the way from the beginning. So I kind of like that because right now I'm not nervous. I think I will be though whenever y'all start playing that rock music. It was like, I wonder what it feels like to be the person who's just like waiting for you to finish your announcement and then you have to talk. I might fumble. I'll drink some beer. What?
You don't need to worry about that. I do that in post. We don't do that. We don't do that part live anymore.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. All right. Then maybe the terror will be reduced.
Should you tell her that we're streaming live right now, though?
Well, she knows.
God.
She's watching us on YouTube, man.
It didn't hit her. It didn't hit her.
No, I'm at live dot whatever. And I did not press play.
Yeah. There you are.
Oh, wow.
I can see your MVP certificate. Right on.
Oh,
I got a
God. I had to put that down. Oh, now I see my face all up in there. Okay. Let me back up just a little. This is confusing. Okay, let me cover me without covering Hal.
I wonder if I can do that, actually.
Do what?
Play the music.
Actually,
go through.
It can be done. I know that you might have to mess up your audio and stuff. Maybe not something to try it. Well,
Start audio repeaters.
several
No,
minutes.
wait, that's not it. I need to...
I got some
Start
good
media.
screenshots of the agenda.
I actually have a PowerShell script that I used to do this.
Oh yeah, to change your virtual audio inputs.
Well, not only that, but to do this.
Oh, nice.
The thing that's weird is I can't hear the music.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay. I can see it's going through. I can see it visually, but I can't hear it because something is routed funny.
So, Johnny, I think you need to do that every time now.
Okay.
Does that mean it's time to party?
Well,
It's not time to party until
right.
Hal does the official opening.
All right.
I mean, I could have done the official opening, but it's like 6 till, so I didn't want to.
Oh, right, yeah.
We actually are starting early, which is not a thing that normally happens. You see,
I appreciate you guys moving it up.
screenshot. Oh yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
I mean,
it worked out pretty well, actually.
So, did the stream hear the music?
Yeah, it looked like it.
Okay, cool.
It looked like it was going out to the stream.
Them. All right, cool. Awesome. So let me paste this somewhere. There we go. Uploading. Processing uploaded file. This is not the exciting part.
We're
Okay,
using
what
a
are we
lot
doing
of
in 5 minutes?
the new tools at Home Depot now, like Confluence and Slack and
You
Jira
guys went
and
all at last
Pivotal
year?
Tracker and all that
I
stuff.
love Jira.
Me too.
We
use all
just switched from Jira to Pivotal Tracker, and I'm still trying to get used to it.
But you're using the other Atlassian stuff, it sounds like.
I know. I don't. It's not up to me. I don't pick the tools. I just have to use them. But Confluence is cool. there's this this visual tool called Glyphy, which you can actually get. You can just go to the website and use it. But it's it's kind of like Visio, and you can lay out really cool diagrams really simply with it. I like it a lot.
Same here. I use it quite a bit. My only issue is that it's behind a VPN, so I gotta
Oh yeah, that is kind of a pain.
I work from home, so.
Is that how you guys were able to get off and do this earlier?
Yeah, because we're both working from home today. Well, Hal works from home all the time.
I kind of always do, yeah. So
I work from home twice a week.
It has its pros and cons. I mean, I've been doing it for quite a while now. Been at Splunk for 4 years and working from home the whole time. I did it for a few years at HP, some years back. And then I worked in offices, before and after that. But, I don't get to talk to my peers, or see them as often. So, it's different. So I have to reach out. I use chat more than probably, other people. We have HIP chat at work. So I'm always on there chatting with people that way. Occasionally we'll do the, video chat. Not as often, not so often, but sometimes we do that. And sometimes I make excuses to get out of the house to go see somebody in person.
Totally. I used to work from home too, and I ended up stopping and going to the office because of that. Man, it is really weird to see your mouth moving.
The lag, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh God, am I talking over him? So I don't know.
Well, if it trips you up, then just watch the Skype video.
Then I just watch my
Well, she doesn't get Skype video because I can't.
Right.
I wonder how
I can't send it to YouTube and to Skype at the same time because Windows.
How? What about you? Would you be able to send it to me or no?
So, no, I don't think so.
Oh my God.
So,
I'm like, okay.
So Jonathan, I don't know how they do it, but Twit totally sends the video back.
Well, yeah, they've also got like $50,000 worth of gear too, and they've got a yeah.
I'm not.
Well, just to do video.
I mean, you by comparing it to,
it would be possible, I think, but I would need at least one other machine because right now I can do everything on one box. Mm-hmm. And the problem is I can't send video to two places at the same time. Mm-hmm. If I could figure out a way to do that, then I could.
Yeah. But yeah, Chrissy, basically just don't look at the lips.
I know. I'm like, just.
And definitely
trust your ears.
Yeah, trust your ears. It all works out. This is not a. Did you just move your camera up and then move back down again?
I did. I was like, am I going to be more comfortable standing and, and talking? And then I decided against it. I actually do this all the time. Aaron Nelson and I Skype quite a bit.
Oh, okay.
But there's not so much pressure of, like thousands of people looking, the whole Slack chat room.
Well, you do the, is that the never mind. I'll ask you about that in a minute.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's not like there's thousands of people right now. I mean, the most people we've ever had. Yeah.
Oh my, thank you. I just saw the screenshot that you took.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was a good one. Oh. I have one with an actual smile. I can send that to you.
Awesome.
If you like. But that was the one that I wanted to share.
That makes me laugh. That's pretty much how I feel right now, though. Like, this is terrifying, but I heard it's fun.
It is. But no,
and I love talking about PowerShell.
Good. we do too. That is rather convenient. I tell you what.
Just not used to talking to people that much. I go to work, sit in my corner. PowerShell.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you. So, can I see how many people are in the stream right now? How does that work out, Jonathan?
It says 9 people are watching now.
Oh, that's reasonable. I can do that.
And even if it said 250, I think we would have told you it was about 9 people.
Good. Hey, just keep telling me 9. Just saying this number is not going up. It's, it's just an intimate number of friends.
Exactly.
Yeah, the audio numbers are vastly different than the video numbers.
Okay, cool. It does actually let me get into the.
Oh, you can see the analytics?
Yes, I believe I can because
Cool.
I'm in YouTube and I see where you're talking about.
So do you see the stream health too, or do you just see? Okay.
Live stream help.
Nice.
I'm not going to touch anything because I see things. I see things in here that would.
Ooh, I could really jack some stuff up.
Well, I just started doing doing this with another podcast for Splunk, Splunk Talk, and we are. I'm the one manning the helm on the video side, but we're just using Google Hangouts instead of a separate encoder. So it's a lot simpler. A lot. But anyway, you ready to go? I think we're in the zone time now.
It's true. It's 5:02. My time.
Your time. That's right. Where's the link in the show notes? Okay, so folks in the chat room, thank you for joining us. If you have any questions of Chrissy, then put a couple of hash marks in front of them, like so. And I have configured my chat client to watch for those sorts of things. And I tried playing with, just by the by, I tried playing with using tags or reactions in Slack. So if you were to tag something with a question mark, and it almost works great, but
okay.
There's you only get only the author of a post gets notified with the reactions. So I can't get notified that someone else tagged another message as a question. So it didn't quite work, but I actually reached out to the Slack people and said, hey, this is how I might use this if you did this. And they said, good idea. I'll talk to the lab. So maybe that'll.
Yeah, that would be
Super
great.
nice.
Can we pull the chat stream out of Slack with PowerShell?
No.
Okay, because right now...
what do you mean?
Because we like to pull stuff out of the chat, like links and questions to put in the show notes.
Yeah, I'm sure you probably could, actually.
And right now, I'd run the Addy IRC to do that.
Yeah, you could do that. It's got an API. I'm not going to answer the whole question of everything, how to do that while we're talking, but under Slack PowerShell, let's see what happens if I type Slack PowerShell. Oh, it goes to Joel's sign up page. Here's a post to Slack from PowerShell. Commandlets for sending. So posting looks like easy. Anyway, something to research. Yeah, it looks like sending in is easy.
Aaron's trying to get in chat, but he's struggling. He said he's watching live. So, Aaron,
cool.
Here's what you do. Go to live.powerscripting.net, and that page has a built-in IRC client in the web interface. You should be able to get on with that. Or, if you're cool, would get in PowerShell Slack and go to the live-podcast channel.
I just got him. I just
cool.
Invited him. So he's new to computers.
Oh, okay. He's a SQL guy, so I mean...
Yeah, you know. All right, cool. I think we're ready to go. I didn't make a Google Drive thing. Let me do that. See how quickly I can do that. Hold on a second. And then promise we'll go. For the show notes. We have to do the show notes. What number are we on, Jonathan? 312?
Yeah, I believe this is 312.
Excellent. Making a copy. Okay, you should see a thing that's being renamed right now. 312. How do I pronounce your last name, Chrissy?
LeMaire.
LeMaire, okay.
LeMaire.
LeMaire.
Yeah, very good.
Okay, gotcha. All right, show notes are in place, Jonathan. And with that, everybody in the chat room, be ready to ask questions. I saw a couple already posted. Thank you. Jonathan, you wanna hit the music button?
Yeah, let me pull that up. Okay. Did I close that? Okay, here we go. Let me try that again. I can't hear what I'm doing, so There we go.
Sounds good.
So, Jonathan, normally this is the part where you say your bit, but we're in the middle of the podcast, so it doesn't feel right if I were to say. So tonight on the PowerScripting podcast, we are pleased to welcome Chrissy LeMaire.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. We're happy to have you here. So
I'm excited to be here.
This is going to be a first for the a couple firsts for the podcast. Really, I mean. We're recording at a really weird time for us. It's noon on Thursday, our time. And Chrissy, where are you located?
I am in southern Belgium, and it is 5:07 p.m. right now.
So that's why we're recording at this odd hour for us, anyway. But I think,
appreciate it. Thank you.
You don't sound like a Belgian native to me.
Ha! You don't. I'm not. I'm from Louisiana. And I have a French last name, and it's a Francophone area, so that causes a lot of problems because they assume that I can speak French. To lower my head and be like, no.
So what I mean, roughly like percentage of folks in Cajun areas actually do speak French?
Oh, my parents actually, their first languages were French. So they're both native French speakers, and English was their second language. And the number used to be a lot higher, but the Americans kind of beat it out of them, saying that, the French made them sound uneducated. And their English had a lot of French structure to it. So we do sound uneducated according to U.S. standards. So now with my generation, it's a very small number. And most of the people who do speak French are playing Cajun French music, which is nice. But none of my friends really. We took Cajun French in high school, but it was just enough to kind of get by. But it was more of a history class, which is really cool.
Yeah. Cajun French. I mean, because I know there's like a different dialect, right? It's not the same as French.
It is, yeah. So French. It's so cool because it's the French that was spoken in Paris in like the 1400s, and then they went to Canada with the Quebecois. And so we speak more similar French. And whenever my mom came over to Belgium, she was trying to speak French, and they just had no idea what she was saying. And I can actually hear the differences now. It sounds it's very ugly. Cajun French is not pretty as compared to Belgian French and Parisian French.
Yeah, I always find that stuff interesting. You know how sometimes you'll get on a Wikipedia page and you'll read that, and then you'll read the next one that's linked to it, and the next one,
Yes.
I've done that with languages and history, and especially like dead languages and things.
Ours is about to die.
Yeah, really.
But I have projects in mind to try to save them. If you look up Cajun English is actually what I speak. And it is English that we use, like French words like piquant. Like, whenever you step on something on the ground like a picker and it sticks you, a burrow, I think that's what y'all say. We call it a piquant.
Not yet.
Yeah. No. Y'all still
I understand, but no.
Yes, and so we call that a piquant. I didn't know the English word for it, and I still kind of don't, I suppose, since I'm not able to describe it properly.
A pecan?
No, piquant.
No, like a burr.
P-I-C-O-N. Yeah, burr.
Yeah. Okay.
A burr. Yeah, we say other things for that.
I just don't use that word, to be honest. Like I know what you're talking about, but
we have them a lot in Louisiana, so we always start stepping on pecans as kids.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Let's talk about a different language. How about PowerShell?
So a lot of times I was listening to your previous podcasts, and you say, so tell us a little about yourself.
We do. And that is actually how we like to start.
Yeah, so you should say that, and then I have a response.
Okay. Let me. Okay. So, Chrissy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so I have a story. And it was back in 2010, I was interviewing with Apple, and it was a really horrible interview. And the guy said, "Why don't you tell us about yourself?" And I was like, and oh, sorry, this was over the phone. So I'm in my apartment and I'm like on the phone and I just stopped and I'm like, "Excuse me, one moment, please," acting like I had something more important to do for like 5 seconds. And I sat there and I was just like trembling and mortified. And I was like, "Oh my God, I don't know what to say here. What is going on?" I usually aced interviews. And so I'd like to make up for that and tell you a lot about myself. Just, it'll be interesting though. Is that cool with you guys? I want to make up for something that happened 6 years ago.
That's perfect.
I want to redeem myself. So, and I brought multimedia that I'll be able to show you this. It's things and props. And so, I'm losing my multimedia. And so, so I was actually born on Mardi Gras in the most Cajun town in the entire world, according to the 1990 U.S. Census. And that makes me feel extra super Cajun. I'm actually Cajun on both sides. And I would like to educate everyone about where Cajun country is. So if you look, can you see Kaplan there?
Yes, I can. It's coming through well.
That's where I was born. And I want you to notice how far it is from New Orleans, because New Orleans is not where the Cajuns live. We live in Cajun country in Acadiana, and they stole our good name. And they upset me because they had a bigger budget, right? And so there was a Cajun chef, Paul Prudhomme. He got real big in the 80s, and he was truly Cajun. He's from a town called Opelousas. And New Orleans was like, "Oh, we have all this money. Like, oh, everybody's loving Cajun." So they're like, "Hey, we're Cajun," and everybody bought to that story. And it hurt my feelings because I grew up thinking I was an inadequate Cajun because I didn't live in New Orleans. And then I moved to California and I learned a whole lot. And but I'm gonna get back to that later. So I actually started working with computers in 1988. My mom had some, I think, at the time it was probably a 286. And she said, "Hey, here's something called DOS. I want you to play on it and type anything but format, SQL, and backslash." And she did this with all of her kids, and now all three of us are actually in IT, which is super awesome. And so, like, fast forward to 1995, I actually got online. I kind of went antisocial at school because I lost my student election. I was going for VP to renew that. I didn't get it, so I was like, I'm just gonna get online. So I got on IRC. Actually, I was on the Undernet in the Tori Amos chat room. And then with learning that, you had to learn your TCP/IP settings and everything like that. And so I ended up getting into computers. And then by 96, I had some paid gigs in my small little town. And then I went to school in northern Louisiana in a town called Natchitoches. And I hate the school. It was terrible. The curriculum was crap. They were teaching like COBOL. And I was like, "Hey, what about C or something? Anything more than COBOL." And they were like, "Well, you can get this job in this one town in Dallas and this one company in Dallas." And I was like, "That's really nice, but I actually want to get a job anywhere." So I looked around at the entire United States and I was like, well, I want to go to a different school. Which cities have cable modems? And there were about, there were about 5. So we had Columbus, Ohio, we had Phoenix, Arizona, San Diego, and those are all I remember because those are the only ones I was actually looking at. And my mom was moving to Phoenix, but that was way too hot. And so I went to San Diego, and
Is it hot in Louisiana?
It is, but it's
Isn't
hot,
it
but
miserably hot and wet in Louisiana?
New Orleans is like the worst place, but for some reason my area is super hot and horrible, but it's just not as hot and horrible as New Orleans or Phoenix.
Okay.
So, and I had no idea that San Diego actually had Mediterranean climate, and it was the most perfect climate in the entire world when I picked it. But I did, because they also had a good school there. It was Cal State San Marcos. And I got a cable modem. It was at home, if you guys remember that.
Oh, yeah.
And I still remember my first IP address, which is 24.0.175.222. And I use it as examples in all of my blog posts. So if anybody thinks, those poor people, they're probably like, who is this? Why is she, setting up a link server on this? But I used it. It was actually one of my first Linux servers. So I've been using Linux since about like 95 or 96. First to IRC, I had a little egg drop bot, did some tickle. And so I started hosting my own stuff. I had AniDeFranco.org. Do you guys remember Ani DeFranco, big folk singer?
Yes, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, so I actually had her biggest website. Spin Magazine thought that we were the official thing, and it was all being hosted off of Apache. And it would just crank all the time. Like we could hear it. It was sitting there. And so what was really awesome about California was the first place that I applied for a job there, I got, and it was at an ISP called Simply Internet. And at first, I started off as tech support. So I'd be like, thank you for calling Simply Internet. This is Chrissy. How may I help you? And I would answer some questions. And then I started doing, we had BSD, I think probably free BSD, doing Apache with front page extensions, which was horrible. And I became the webmaster for that. And then I left to work for a software startup, which was really cool because I had a company at the time that I still have. It's Net Nerds Networks. And this guy called and he was like, hi, your name is like super interesting and you call yourself a nerd and that's awesome. And I want to hire you. And so I was like, all right, what do you need me for? And so, he had his own in-house mail server, so I took that over. That was some kind of Linux setup, and that's actually when I first started working with SQL Server. So I went from just doing administration with Linux, and then we went on to NT, and we had was Active Directory on NT?
No, it was Windows 2000.
Okay, yeah. So whatever NT had, I don't know if I was messing with it at that time, but anyway, I was kind of the administrator for that, and then I became a DBA, and I fell in love with it because SQL helps me order things because my brain is there's a lot of I can't. It's disorganized, and I really loved that SQL could organize everything for me. And what was really great about working there, the CEO had a double PhD in engineering from an Ivy League school. And he was like, hey, Chrissy, this is the .com and you need to drop out of school. And I was like, what? My mom would kill me. And he was like, how much do you think that you would make if you, graduated from school? And I told him and he said, okay, I'll match that, drop out. And I did. And it ended up turning out really well because, as you guys know, after the .com kind of went down, then at the time, if you had experience, at least in my experience in San Diego, it was easier to get jobs with experience than it was with, just a fresh degree. So I have notes because is this okay for you guys so far? Is this
That's great.
Keeping you interested? Awesome. Okay. So this CEO, he said, hey, we need somebody else to come in. And they brought in this guy that I didn't like at all. So on September 1st of 2001, I resigned in protest of mismanagement of this startup. And then September 11th happened and it sucked for a wide variety of reasons, including, its impact on the job market.
Oh, yeah.
And so for 5 months, I actually wasn't able to find a job until I went out and I got the MCDBA certification. And then immediately in 1 week, I had 2 job offers.
Wow.
Yeah, I was super surprised. And the first one was with the company that whenever I went, the guy was like giving me a tour of the data center. He's like, so I used to be the HTML guy. And now, I'm the sysadmin. Just so you know, we will never move off of SQL 6.5. It works. And we have no reason. And I have a higher uptime than the Unix guys. So So that's what's going to happen. You're going to manage 6.5 for the rest of your life. And I was like, oh God, this is hard. I mean, yeah, I smiled. Oh yeah, I could totally understand stability. But then I walked out of there and I was like, oh God, not taking that job. And I ended up working for a law firm, and it was the best decision of my entire life. Law firms are really great to work for because they pride themselves on beautiful things, like beautiful offices. They always want to be the best. And so you get to work in really great places. We were on the 22nd floor of one of the premier buildings, and we had really great IT equipment because they're always competing with one another. So over there, I was their DBA. And then I also kind of branched out because at the time, if you recall, I was doing the AnitaFranco.org website. I was doing web development from the previous place. And over here, I redid their entire intranet. I eventually got them on SQL 2005. What is that? Okay, that's not so bad. Is that my faces aren't crazy yet? I don't think.
No, I'll watch for crazy faces.
Okay, thank you. And then let me know. It's usually when I'm concentrating. I think I'm like doing like that. So yeah, and around this time, I started making these just extra things for them. I wrote a Palm Pilot application. I wrote an IE toolbar, which was great because they were the first law firm with an IE toolbar. And that's also the time that I think I started working with Power PCs and SUSE Linux on Mac, which my mom sent me this the other day and I was like, oh my God, that's super awesome. Oh, here's another one of my props. This is from whenever I lived in California. It's a place that's close to my heart, and that's the name of my company. And so whenever I was with this law firm, I ended up moving to Los Angeles. And in 2005, here's where the PowerShell comes in. I went to the Los Angeles, Microsoft Professional Developers Conference in September. And that's actually, I know for sure that was one of the first times I had ever seen PowerShell, which was called Monad at the time. I believe it was Jeffrey Snover that was presenting. But
seems likely.
Yeah. But most definitely, I met Lee Holmes there, and we hit it off so well. I was like, hey, why don't you come over to my house? I'll make a gumbo or some etouffee, whatever you want. And so he came and he visited, and then he told me that he was going to return the favor, and I could go up to his place in Seattle, and he would bring me eat poutine. And then I fell in love with poutine, which is it's been hard living life without poutine. Because you can't invent it, you can't make it. And so, yeah, that's whenever I first started working with PowerShell, but it was super hard. Even with an ASP background, and I was doing a lot of VBScript, I found it to be one of the most challenging things. I have mad respect for. I think that Aaron said that he picked it up pretty quickly. And I was like, how? It looks so it's not as bad as Perl, back then, going from VBScript and SQL, which really is kind of, it looks human, and to something more complicated, that looks more like Java or C# or whatever. I think it was like the piping that kind of threw me off.
Well, back then we basically had no documentation at all. The only person who was blogging about it was Mo. He had his blog, a million years. Mao. Yeah, we had him, but that was not a lot else. There was that guide that came out, but yeah, for a while, we didn't really have a lot of good examples and stuff. And Mao was so far ahead of everybody that I was looking at his code going, what?
I know. How does he know? This takes genius level stuff. Whatever happened with Mao?
I don't know. He's been off the PowerShell scene for, at least 5 years, maybe longer than that.
He did something in PowerShell. Maybe there'll be a reason to get him back on the show because somebody sent me a link to something. I don't remember what it was now, but I'll have to reach out to him.
Oh, is he back? Wow.
I don't know. Somebody
that would be incredible.
Yeah, he was a brilliant guy. We had him on the show a long time ago.
I want to say it was like Raspberry Pi related.
Oh, okay.
Project he was doing with Raspberry Pi. But anyway, so let's talk. I almost hate to cut you off. No, I do hate to cut you off, actually, because this is super interesting. And folks in the chat room are responding positively, which I appreciate.
Yeah, awesome.
But let's get into the technical bits a little bit more. Tell me what you're doing now, you work in the defense industry, is that right?
I do. So
I had a couple specific questions. I was kind of wondering, like, how is it different in the defense industry as opposed to working in IT out of the defense industry?
One of the biggest things is, for the most part, you do have to wait for, so you have something called disastigs, that are, I don't know even what it stands for, security template, something. And so that's pretty much, you have to wait until DISA comes out with their stigs, and then they're in the final, their final version. And then you have to apply all of those stigs. And so it's a bit more, it's a little more of a pain in the butt, because you do have more locked down systems. But overall, it really depends on which area you're in. Whenever you work in the special ops, which is the area. So I work for General Dynamics as a contractor. We have a contract with NATO Special Ops. So I work at NATO Special Ops headquarters, and we have Special Ops are known for being progressive. And so even though, other areas, they'll have stigs that are available that they can log down all of their systems, they'll still take like 8 years to get around to it. As we know with OPM, even though OPM isn't in the defense industry, they are still using XP. And so it's really cool. The area that I work in, we do get to use more recent things, and we're a little more progressive than the rest of the defense industry.
That's interesting. So the things that excite you and the things that are new, does that mean basically you're doing those on the side or as a hobby instead of your day job?
Yes, exactly. So okay. I work with Windows 10, but it's my lab. My lab is pretty awesome. It's like all SSD, and it's quiet, and it's powerful. I have a lot of RAM and a lot of space. But yeah, most of my stuff is done just after work. But I do get to use, whenever I write, I try to write for PowerShell 3 and above. And that's one of the reasons, whatever I write at home, then I can use it at work. And then most people can actually use it, instead of writing it for 5, or even writing it for the commandlets that are only available, in Windows 8.1 and, in Windows 2012 R2 and above. I try not to use those so much because I do try to keep it backwards compatible.
Well, I think 3 is a pretty good target.
I would agree. Yeah.
So, what are some of the things that the areas that you're most interested in focusing on lately?
It's SQL Server and PowerShell is really the biggest thing. For some time, I was working with VMware. I made some really crude scripts they were PowerShell scripts back in 2013 that replaced all of the security certificates. And because it's such a pain in the butt to do that for the entire vSphere, everything, you're always like clicking install or cancel, especially if you're in a VDI environment and you don't have that certificate installed. You just hit there, cancel like every week after the refresh. So that was something that I was into. I don't like working. I used to like working with PowerShell and AD, but that's not something that's exciting for me anymore. And so it's mostly SQL Server these days. I'm trying to look at all this. Let me look at my little repository and see what I've been working on.
Module for, was it like DBA tools or something like that?
Yes. DBA tools is something that, as a DBA, I get super excited about, because it's like, we're told so many times, PowerShell can automate the things that you do every day, or, the things that you do only sometimes. And you sit there and you're like, okay, like what? Okay, I could check my jobs, but what else? And what I love about it, so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll troll Reddit and see what people, what they ask for. And one of my favorite things in the DBA tools module is, it's called Reset SQL SA Password. And I might rename it, but basically, just yesterday, I inherited a SQL Server stack, where the vendor comes in and they install their thing, and they have all these SQL instances, and you don't have access to it. So I need to kind of break into it. And as a Windows admin of the box itself, I can actually, in less than 20 seconds, regain access by either changing the SA password, but I don't use SA. SA was kind of sysadmin.
Yeah, isn't that the legacy way to do it?
Exactly. Exactly. And so I don't use SA, but the name of the script, I kind of need to change it because it just means sysadmin. So I can actually add in my own Windows user. And that's usually what I do, or I can add in a SQL user and it'll just give me all the access that I need. It'll make sure, it'll do all the checks because there are a lot of checks that you have to do. You have to make sure that the account is unlocked. You have to make sure that it exists. You have to make sure if you do add a SQL user, that SQL authentication is enabled. So it automates all of those things that are just such a pain in the butt, and you do have to do them more often than you would expect.
So what's the PowerShell scene like now, or the story like for SQL? Because originally, they had their own kind of weird implementation of PowerShell, and it was garbage. And, I've heard it's gotten better since then, but, that was like 3 versions of SQL ago.
I will be honest. Exactly. I'll be honest. And hold on, let me fix my screen again because I kind of went looking at other stuff and now I kind of lost track of you guys. And now I need to probably load up my blog. But even though I'm a DBA, I did kind of take some time off and I started doing SharePoint in 2011. And that's really when I got into PowerShell and when I started understanding it and using it. And it was that aha moment that I had in 2011 where I woke up and I was like, oh my God, I know it. And I had been wanting that since 2005 to actually just be able to express myself using PowerShell. And that finally happened. And it was SharePoint. And I even though I'm a SQL DBA, even though, I've been doing that since 99 or so, when I imported that SQL PS module and it did the 3 things, 1, it took forever. 2, it yelled at me about unapproved verbs. And 3, it changed my directory. It made me feel so lost that I had no desire to work with it. And then my best friend is actually DBA too, and he's really awesome. And he had all these scripts and he was like, hey, check this out. And it was SMO. And SMO looked really beautiful and exciting, but I didn't realize. So whenever you create your server object within SMO, if you just press if you just type $server, enter, it'll sit there for a second because it's enumerating everything. And I'm just like, God, everything in SQL Server and PowerShell is slow. And what I didn't realize is that that's just not what it's meant for. If you do server.databases, that'll be way faster than enumerating everything. So as far as SQL PS goes, I don't have any experience with it because I was just hands off. Okay. And until I was talking to Aaron and, but I had a sense that this module was kind of controversial to talk about. So I kind of kept my opinions to myself about it. But in private, I did talk to Aaron Nelson, and he, he's a longtime PowerShell advocate. He also uses, he's also, he's a SQL Server MVP, and he didn't use it either. And so he was doing some abstracts for SQL Pass. And while he was working on that, I was like, well, let me go ahead and take a look to see why is this so slow? Maybe it's something, that I can figure out. And so I did like dash verbose and I saw it kind of stutter on a PS1 file, which meant that I could look inside of it and maybe I can change something. And whenever I saw it actually enumerating every single module that exists with every single function inside of it by doing this one call, I was like, oh my God, that's it. So I commented it out and I did what it wanted to do in spirit, but it wasn't doing properly. And I changed that, and the load time went from 3 to 4 seconds to 0.3 seconds. So like 300 milliseconds. And I was like, oh my God, wait. And so I was like, Aaron, oh my God. And so he did it. He was like, whoa, this changes everything. Maybe since the change, this little thing, what about other things that we hate? So, changing the directory. So we looked and we found it in that same little file. And then what about the unapproved verbs? Well, a lot of people thought that the unapproved verbs, well, Microsoft's never going to change that because it breaks, backwards compatibility. But if you use an alias, so if you change it to an approved verb, just throw in an alias, people's scripts are still going to work. And so, I mean, unfortunately, we found that like right at the end of February or the beginning of March, and you guys may not know, SQL Server is due to RTM, I believe, on April 1st. And so if it's a very small amount of time, but they are such small changes. And the difference with our tickets that we submitted to connect, was that we actually had the solutions and they were really straightforward. Really, somebody just needs to go in and open up a file and change a couple lines that we showed them like 5 different ways to do it. And so we're really hoping, and it did get their attention. The PM for SQL Server did mention on Twitter that he had sent it on to his team. So maybe it's a possibility.
That's great news.
Cool. So let's send people to the. Do you still need Connect votes? Should we send people to?
Yes, we love Connect votes. Okay, so let me see the easiest way. Oh, okay. So if you go to bit.ly, oh, you know what? I could actually type it here. So if we go to bit.ly / don't look at my face, y'all, just 3 things. So this actually has the blog post that has the 3 Connect modules. And in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a related thing, but that this actually doesn't address, where it says votes needed. Help persuade Microsoft to open source SQL Server's PowerShell module SQL PS. And this has definitely gotten Microsoft's attention. And by the way, we could still use upvotes. So if you click on that link, you can see we are now at 152 upvotes for this. And I do have some news to share from Microsoft's mouth about all of this. If you guys are ready.
I'm ready.
All right. I'm gonna build up. Does anybody have any drums?
I'm just votes now, by the way.
Woo! Thank you guys. Please keep bringing it. Oh, you know what I'm going to, let's see. Okay, bit.ly. Let's see, open source SQL PS. Okay, so here's the other one. If people just want to click there and go straight to that one, then you can give an upvote there. So Microsoft has commented. And around this time, serendipitously, I love this because it happened just hours before Microsoft announced that SQL Server was going to be ported to Linux. We actually put in a Microsoft Connect item to open source it, and then they came out with this. And so Aaron and I have been in touch with the SQL Server team. And for those with questions about SQL Server running on Linux, I know that I had a lot because I love Linux. I love SUSE Linux. It's my favorite. And Aaron and I are actually going to be doing a webcast soon about it. But they said this. Okay, so the current state of SMO support. SMO running on a Windows computer can be used to connect to and work with SQL Server running anywhere, including Linux. So currently, if you have the DBA tools module, hopefully, because it does use SMO to manage that, and that's SQL management objects, it will be able to connect from a Windows machine to a Linux machine and manage it that way. So not a lot is actually going to change when you're working with PowerShell and SQL Server from a Windows workstation.
That's awesome.
It's super awesome. I was so excited whenever I heard that. I figured that would be the case, but it was really nice to hear the confirmation.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. I'm glad to hear that.
It does. The guy, he almost seemed apologetic, like, sorry, it's not actually going to, you can't run the PowerShell scripts on Linux yet. But that's actually up to the PowerShell team. If they do port PowerShell to Linux, then, that's whenever probably the modules I would expect for most of the things that we do to work as well.
But like you said, SMO, it's a library. You've got scripts out there. Anybody can do their own stuff against the .NET objects, and there you go. That's great to hear. So what else can you tell us about, generally SQL Server on Linux and the porting, and what's the state of it right now? Is it like an alpha or experimental? I haven't jumped into it.
Oh, I actually don't have any of that information. It's just some other things about its state as far as timelines go. And I think that, so I'm actually quoting Microsoft directly because I didn't want to violate any kind of confidentiality. So I asked for the exact things. So they said that Microsoft is investigating whether it makes sense to port SMO over to CoreFX. Oh, actually, no, on Linux, or to offer a non.NET APIs like Node.js or Python for users to programmatically manage SQL Server from Linux. So I guess they're looking into both of those. They are also investigating porting SQL package.exe and the DACFX APIs to CoreFX on Linux. They are also investigating options for a cross-platform lightweight SQL Management Studio tool, GUI tool for Linux, which would be super cool because I'm assuming that it'll be something like how Visual Studio Code works on
Studio
Mac.
Code. That was my first thought when you said that.
Exactly. And so hopefully, we'll have something that works on Mac, on Linux, and on Windows. Because right now it's still, the whole entire suite. Well, actually, no, with 2016, you can get kind of a more slimmed down version, and it's a different download for that. So
speaking of Visual Studio Code, there was a specific question earlier from the chat room. What editor do you use for PowerShell scripts?
So I am super crude. Whenever I program, I use Notepad++ and the console, and that is it. And I like it because it's clean. Like I actually have nothing in my profile. So I'll close out PowerShell and I'll open it up and I'll paste things in. And it might sound like it's slow, but I find that it helps my scripts work in every environment. I'm not a huge fan of the ISE. I tried to use it a bunch of times. It has a lot of really cool features. And at some point I felt, I was like, you're not as good of a PowerSheller if you don't, use this tool and promote it. But I find myself, I go back to Notepad++. I also tried Visual Studio Code and I was really into it and I was convinced that I was going to switch to it. But then I opened up Notepad++ and it felt like home. I
do understand that feeling.
Yeah.
So what about when you're managing SQL Server more directly? I mean, are you using the full GUI tools there?
I do. It really depends. All of my monitoring is done through PowerShell, and it's actually done through a PowerShell GUI. So I have a little thing in my taskbar.
Tell us a little more about that.
I actually wrote if you go to the scripting guys, I wrote something about it. Uses WPF for the front end, and in the back end, it will have run spaces. I tried a whole bunch of things, and Boprox did such great work with doing multi-threading because whenever you have your WPF, like right now, mine it doesn't use multi-threading. So if I try to open up my little window, my little notify icon, while it's doing its work, it's just going to sit there until it's done with its work because it's polling constantly for live information. And so I will be putting in those two things together. And whenever I look at a way to approach a problem, I try in so many different ways, and I like to come up with new and exciting ways to do it. And it was Boprox's way all the way. The way that he does it is really cool. It's a little challenging to understand with the way that the run spaces work. But yeah, that'll be it.
We'll put link in the show notes to the article that you wrote there, creating a pop-up by using PowerShell. And
that's the first of two articles. The next one is going to have it'll have the polling and the run spaces. So just right now, it's whenever you have the cute little pop up on the lower right hand side.
Yeah, like a toast.
Oh, those toast notifications.
Exactly. So with toast though, the actual little toast thing, it's limited in how much you can type. So it took me a long time to figure it out that it was a WPF window that comes up. So yeah, those are the things that's actually what I manage with, and that I keep track of everything through there. But I believe that ultimately it's going to be it's going to be a full screen PowerShell GUI. And for those, there's a lot of haters that are like, sometimes, if it looks like a hammer or whatever, it's going to be all PowerShell. I love PowerShell and I know PowerShell. And if it weren't for PowerShell, if somebody was like, oh, the only thing that you can do, if you want to use WPF, you have to use C#, then I'm just never going to do it. So I like, and I advocate for PowerShell and GUI because we all know it. And so we can just mix the two things. And if you handle it properly, the threading, it works. My little monitoring application has actually, I should check on it again. But the last time I checked, it was like 32 days straight and there's been no errors, no crashing or anything like that.
Well, I think also to an extent, I don't want to overgeneralize, but some people are very good at learning multiple languages and some people aren't. So once you take the time to learn the syntax of, say, PowerShell, that you do want to keep using it because there's a learning curve of learning how to do the same thing in, C# or whatever, or Python or anything else. So
exactly.
It makes a lot of sense to use the one that you know all the tricks with.
Yeah, and I feel like I'd have just never got around to doing GUI programming. If I wasn't doing it through PowerShell, it would have just stayed on my to-do list forever and ever. And now I can do it, and it's exciting. And people seem to really be excited about the idea too. I get like nice ratings and nice comments and stuff like that.
Yeah, I highly recommend the article. Actually, I was just skimming through it just now, and it's good stuff.
Oh, cool. Thank you. I actually do have more information too from Microsoft about what's that?
Please continue.
All right. So Microsoft is investigating open sourcing the SQL Server PowerShell provider and commandlets.
Whoa.
And they feel that, yes, that it makes a lot of sense and aligns with what Microsoft is already doing with Azure PowerShell commandlets on GitHub.
Nice.
That's outstanding.
That is such great news. They do not have dates or more details to share for any of these items at this time, but they will keep the community updated on their progress as they continue to evaluate their plans based on customer feedback, which is why it's really important that we still, even though it's at 150 and that might be a pretty solid number, we still need to get it rolling. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Users can use SSMS and the Visual Studio and the SQL Server data tools running on Windows to connect with and work with SQL Server running anywhere. So in addition to SMO, and of course, SSMS does use SMO in the background, so this should make sense. But just to reiterate, whenever you do have SQL Server on Linux instances, you can just add it to your list. And since it supports, well, actually, I can't say for sure if it'll support Windows authentication, but it seems like it because I actually have I have an article where I talk about using SQL CMD and BCP, which are two common SQL Server command line tools. They ported those to Linux already. And if I log into my Linux server using my Windows AD credentials, I can connect with integrated authentication to SQL Server. So it seems like that's
that seems like a problem that used to exist, which they had to have solved, for some time now, because like you were saying, the SQL the SA account being legacy, around that same time you saw the integrated authentication really being kind of default or pushed more often for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, it is more secure. I do know I wrote an article back in 2013 where I was playing with that. So I know that for at least 3 years, they have supported using integrated authentication on Linux. And just one more thing. Users can use third-party tools like Eclipse and My Little Admin, SQL SH, SQL Client, etc., that use our connectivity drivers to connect to and work with SQL Server running anywhere, to include Linux.
Wow.
So that's...
Yeah, so they're really going to hit the whole ecosystem.
Yes.
All of them. That's good. That's very good.
I'm really excited about it. It's three of my favorite things. I love Linux, I love PowerShell, and I love SQL Server. And so this is all kind of coming together.
That is excellent. So there were a couple of questions I thought that were interesting from the chat room that talk a little about some specific features of SQL Server that I'm kind of curious. So is anybody is anybody running SQL Server databases over SMB shares?
Not that I'm aware. I don't know about anybody else's environments. I know that the functionality exists. It was introduced quite a few versions ago.
A while ago, and then I know with SMB v3, that's when you I looked at it and thought, okay, now it's at least possible or practical. Before that, I was like, no way, that doesn't even make sense. But
it's not something that I would ever do. I don't think. Mounts, which mounts are about as crazy as I get with my setup. I like to keep it kind of conservative. And so, yeah, I'm not aware of anyone else using it, but I don't have a huge draw of SQL DBAs that I talk to about their own setups. So, yeah, I'm not too sure.
Okay. Another question, Jason, working with Jason in SQL Server, have you done that much? Any tips on how to put that type of structured data into a database?
Not at all. I haven't even messed with it yet at all.
No, that's something that I am getting a little more into, because my world is kind of the opposite world of yours. I'm on the NoSQL side, if you will, when it comes to the technologies that I work with day to day. And I know that there are features being added to SQL Server to kind of work with different type of data types.
Wouldn't you just take the object and convert it from JSON, and then take that object and push it into SQL?
I think Aaron is going to want to come on the show to talk about all this stuff.
Yeah, that would be awesome. He would be able to speak.
I wouldn't think that would be too big a challenge.
Yeah, he's saying SQL 2016 is going to have some stuff.
So okay.
We'll have to revisit that topic.
So maybe they'll have a more direct route.
So, Chrissy, what can you tell us about what you and he are doing with SQL Pass?
Oh, I'm super excited about this. So if you go to PowerShell.SQLPass.org, just recently we actually reached record-breaking numbers with Sander Stod being on our program. He did a session about documenting SQL Server with PowerShell. And we have put in a lot of work into actually, a lot of times if you go to a web page, you'll click on resources and it'll just be empty. Everything that is on the site has a lot of information, and it's information. So whenever I first went to the PowerShell virtual chapter, I didn't really know its history, and I didn't really know much about the speakers or the topics. And so Aaron actually asked me to join as the co-lead. And so I kind of I went and I gathered all of that information, and then I made it really easy. So you can understand, whenever you look at the site, it's really obvious what our goals are and the things that we talk about. So we do like to talk a lot about PowerShell and SQL Server, but we also want to just introduce PowerShell in general to everyone. And we have really good numbers. And so if anybody is actually interested in coming on the show, we do have a call for speakers. Just hit me up on Twitter at @CL. And we'd love to have, both regular PowerShell kind of stuff and PowerShell and SQL Server on the show as well.
That's awesome. PowerShell.SQLPass.org.
Yes.
We'll definitely send people there for you.
Yeah, yesterday we had 200 or almost 200 attendees, which is just great.
Nice. Yeah, I recall it was probably the last time that we had Aaron on the show when he was talking about SQL Pass generally, and just I think it has something to do with DBAs. Like DBAs working with structured databases, they appreciate structure, they build tools that have structure. So the end result is an organization that runs well and has great tools and presentation. So when you have something like that as kind of the infrastructure, then people definitely pop up around it.
Yes,
leads to a welcome experience for everybody.
And we're really hoping that there's going to be a bigger embrace within the SQL Server community with PowerShell. It almost seems at some point to be kind of like a naughty word. People are like, PowerShell. And I understand. I was that person until when did I change? I mean, maybe it was, I think back in 2013 is whenever I finally started saying, well, I'm going to get into this SMO bit. But before that, I had a lot of bad connotations. It seemed really slow, and it's absolutely not. And I made an entire presentation around this idea to get people excited that it can be really fast. And what I did was I created a PowerShell module that can import over 200 and I've gotten up to 330,000 rows per second, but it's about 200,000, 250,000 rows per second are one of the things that I have. A video is 25 million rows in less than 2 minutes. And so this just kind of shows that PowerShell is capable of being super fast. You just have to use it right. And it doesn't count when you're just importing a module that's kind of slow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So disabusing kind of people of some notions about PowerShell.
Exactly.
So
I hope it works.
Anywhere else you want to send people before we let you go? I've got one more question for you, but
let's see. PowerShell.sequelpass.org. I think that's
right,
really
cool.
it.
Blog.netnerd.net.
Yes.
SCL on Twitter.
Yeah, I have a super elite Twitter handle. It's just CL. I know. It's kind of awesome.
So I have a question for you, Chrissy.
Yes.
This is a question that we ask of everyone who comes on the podcast. Perhaps you've heard of it. If you could be a superhero or have a superpower, what would it be and why?
I usually know that. Oh God, I usually know the answer to this, and at this moment, I would probably say flying, because I love to travel, and you always kind of wonder what the landscape looks like, and so drones, like the drone with the cameras, it seems super exciting. Now I kind of thought about getting one because I like seeing everything kind of come together, and I love beauty, and that's one of the reasons I actually love living in Belgium. It's super beautiful down here. So yeah, I would pick flying. I know it's kind of generic, but
generic is good. Flying is good. We've had
generic's not always good. Sometimes it happens.
Yeah.
Did you see the video of the drone races in Dubai?
No.
Oh, you got to watch one of those.
Yeah, it's first-person video of a drone flying through an amazing course, and it kind of feels like you're flying.
Oh my God! Okay, I'll have to check it out.
All
if
right.
You could paste.
I'll drop the link in the show notes. Yeah, here's
some scripts on the internet make me cry. That's awesome. Very cool.
So, Chrissy, thank you very much for spending time with us.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
In the history lesson and the Cajun influence.
If there's one takeaway from this, guys, Cajuns are not from New Orleans. We're from Acadiana. It's to the west.
Is the food better there than in New Orleans?
The food is different. It's really, I guess maybe it's comparing Italian food and Spanish food. They are kind of more upscale. We are poorer, and we have more rustic ingredients, and it's different. I don't prefer their food. It has a lot of celery, and I like celery, but like to a degree. And it is, Cajun food it's what I grew up on. And yeah, I had beignets every night, not every night, but I had beignets at least weekly. And oh, you know what?
I don't even know what that is.
A beignet, it's French for donut. And so if you see Café Du Monde, they have, it looks like a puffy thing, and it has a whole bunch of powdered sugar on it. But yes, actually, I do want to send people to one more thing. If you go to realcajunrecipes.com, that is a site that I set up with my mom and best friend back in 2002. So it's now about 14 years old. About in 2013, we updated it. Poor thing, it had been out of style for a really long time. But we do have all of the real food that Cajun people eat, and you can read a little bit of history there.
So Aaron is bugging us. You got to mention DBA tools again.
And my DBA tools module. That's so true. Okay, so if you let's see, if you go through get.io/B300, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, so my DBA tools module it's as a DBA, I love it. I kind of wrote it for myself and then shared it with everyone. There is such a pain in the butt it's such a pain to migrate an entire instance, right? And there's a lot of considerations that you have to make. Is it going to be compatible? What's the structure like over there? And to automate that, I really couldn't find any good tools. And I made DBA tools that automatically, you just set your source server, your destination server, and it'll copy over all your databases or some. It does your logins. It does link servers, including the encrypted passwords, which is super cool. It copies over credentials, which are also encrypted. It copies over jobs. It copies over backup items or whatever those things are called. And so it does. My goal is to have an entire instance with every single thing be able to be migrated. And I'm about, I would say, 80% there. We use it for migrating our SharePoint forms because SharePoint makes about 800 databases and it's really a pain in the butt. You don't want to right-click backup, right-click restore. With this, it's as simple as start SQL Server migration or SQL migration, source SQL Server, destination, new SQL Server, and then boom. Or you do have to specify if you want backup and restore or detach, copy, and reattach. And so it's a very straightforward way to back up and restore your databases and migrate an entire instance as opposed to just pieces.
That sounds pretty amazing.
It is. It is. I use it all the time. I love it.
So I guess that's it for us today with Chrissy LeMaire. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys having me on. I hope I didn't make too many crazy faces.
I told you this would be easy.
I think I'm asleep after this. It was way easier than I thought that it was. It is kind of weird though. I'm just looking at a chat room. I don't even know what kind of face I'm making. I don't know what you guys look like now. It's like this.
That's why I put in some of those. I did find a funny face. Let me paste one of those real quick.
I can't wait. Actually, I might make it my Facebook background. I did like that one. That's how I feel. I know it seems like I like to talk, but I'm terrible. I've just been sweating since 4 p.m. My keyboard, poor thing. I'm gonna wash it with some Clorox.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Oh, let's see. Ah! Oh, thank you. Oh my God. That's that's what I look like when I program. I feel bad for any of my coworkers. It's just terrible. Thank you. It made me laugh.
All right, guys.
Yeah, I've actually got to go get on a call.
I have to go too.
Cool. All right.
All right. Bye. Thanks again. Bye, everybody.